Okay, this webcast we're going to continue our tutorial here using JavaScript, and we got some kind of some new tools that we're using. One, we introduced functions after our last tutorial. We also looked at a couple new event-driven tools here. We have the onClick event, and then we introduced the onChange event. Okay, so we've introduced these now. Let's actually create a piece of software that's going to do something. And my choice here is to put together a temperature conversion program here, and we have our 2 units of measuring temperature. We have Fahrenheit, we have Celsius. We use Fahrenheit, the rest of the world uses Celsius. I'm starting with a kind of a skeleton of what we've already created from our earlier tutorial here. We still have our reset button here. That's an on-click event, and anytime I put something in here and I do my on-click reset this button, it clears out text box 1 and text box 2. Okay, when I first look at my user interface here, one of the things I note is that there is a lot of space in that text box. I'll probably never have a temperature that large, so let's change it, make it a little more user friendly. Thinking around 3 digits would probably be the max that I'll use here. And there's an attribute in my text boxes that I can use called size. So I'm going to go back over to my code here, and I'm going to, in text box 1, I'm going to change the size, and we'll make it 3 units. I'll go down to text box 2. I'll change its size to 3 units. And let's go over, let's save it, go over and see what that looks like. And that's a little more reasonable. I think I put my 3 digits in there and a few more. Okay. All right, so let's go back. We're going to create a couple new functions here and a couple new on-click events. And I want to create a function that's going to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit. All right. And we have our function we created earlier, which just resets our values here. And my Celsius to Fahrenheit, I'm going to pass a parameter up to it, and then I'm going to return a value. Okay, so I pass a value up to it. I'm going to send it the value of Celsius temperature, and then my function is going to return the value of Fahrenheit temperature, if that makes sense. Let me create my skeleton for this, and we'll talk a little bit more about how this function works. Okay, so we have function from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and so it's going to, I'm going to send with it a temperature, okay, or pass a parameter onto it, and I'll pass it ctemp parameter, and then I'm going to have it return something, and I'll have it return, right now I'm going to have it return the value 0, okay, just to set this up. I'm going to copy that function, I'm going to paste it, I'm going to create this second function, which is going to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I'm going to pass it a Fahrenheit temperature, and just to initialize it, we're going to return a 0. Okay, and I simply am putting that there as a placeholder. And we'll go ahead and see how all this works, okay? So I got my 2 functions here. And with my temperature conversion, text box 1 is going to have a Fahrenheit temperature. Text box 2 is going to have a Celsius temperature. So when I have my onChange event takes place to my Fahrenheit temperature, I'll create my onChange event here. When that takes place, I want to change the value of text box 2. So I'll say text box 2 dot value is going to be equal to, well, let me call my function. I'm going Fahrenheit to Celsius, F to C. And that function, I'm going to send it the parameter text box 1 dot value, or what's in my Fahrenheit text box. All right. Now go ahead and close off that onChange event. We'll read through it again. So when text box 1 changes, I want to change text box 2's value so it's equal to whatever my Fahrenheit to Celsius temperature conversion formula does. And I'm sending, of course, that function what the value of text box 1 is. Okay? So let me save that. Let's just see if we get a value over here. So I put in refresh here. I'll put in a value for Fahrenheit, and whoops, I put that in there as soon as I hit tab. Okay, something's changed, right? Text box 2's changed. All right, and right now, no matter what value I put in here, it's gonna be 0 in text box 2. Okay, and so what's taken place here is text box 2, its value is going to be equal to whatever this function does, f to c, and right now it's just returning a value. Let's change that. All right, so now I want to create a formula to go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So I take my Fahrenheit temperature, and the formula actually here is 5/9 times the Fahrenheit minus 32. So I'm going to create that formula here. So I'm going to say 5 divided by 9 times my Fahrenheit temperature minus 32. Now I'm working with this parameter, this variable Fahrenheit temperature that's being passed up to my function. Okay, and then I'm going to return, well, whatever that computation turns out to be. So let me save that. Let me pull up reset my values here. All right, and my Fahrenheit temperature, let's say I'm at 32 degrees Fahrenheit at 0 degrees Celsius. Very good. Let's reset it. We'll try it on one other temperature here. Let's go 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That should equal what? 100 degrees Celsius. Very good. Okay, so we got our first text box hooked up to some code that allows it to convert the function, or convert using a function, convert the temperature using a function. Let's go down to text box 2. I'm going to put a big space here to separate these because I think my code's starting to be not so readable. Okay, so I'm under Celsius here, and I want to take my text box and attach an onChange event to it. I'll say text box. Now when text box 2 changes, I want to change text box 1's value. So I'll say text box 1.value is going to be equal to, now this is text box 2 is Celsius, so Celsius to Fahrenheit, I send it whatever value is in text box 2. Close it up. Okay, so look at the syntax here. onChange event is equal to, well, we're going to change text box 1. Text box 1's value is now going to be equal to my whatever comes out of my, whatever's returned from my function, Celsius to Fahrenheit, and I'm going to send it the parameter text box 2.value. Okay, let's go up to the function Celsius to Fahrenheit, or C to F. All right, here I need to put my calculation together, my computation together, and so I have C temperature, and my formula is going to be 9/5 times my Celsius temperature, C temp, plus 32. All right, I'm going to save that. I'll refresh. Let me put in 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, now onChange event, right? We're just going to tab down to the next field, and that moves that down to 32 degrees. Let's run a couple more tests. Make sure this works right. Reset it. Let's put 100 degrees Celsius should be 212 degrees Fahrenheit. 68 degrees Fahrenheit should be 20 degrees Celsius. That's correct. Let's try 100 degrees Celsius is going to be 212 degrees Fahrenheit. I think our program's working here. Okay, so review again. We've created functions. Functions we can pass a parameter on, and a function can also return a value, and then we can hook those up to our text boxes. So when using the onChange event, so when one of those text boxes change, we can call upon that function to update the other text box.